Hello, this is Jeremy Hung from Hung's Electronics, and wanted to talk about something a little fundamental and close to my heart, of course, and that is the RF spectrum. And primarily, the reason why I wanted to talk about it is not just the fundamentals behind it at all, actually. I mean, there's plenty of videos on YouTube that you can find on electromagnetics, RF, and all sorts of other things. But as kind of like the theme of this channel, I suppose. I mean, so far it's all been about rants, so I might as well do another one. And no, this one has a particular. This video has a particular focus, and once again, this is all unscripted. It's all based on my current knowledge of how all this stuff works, and I can tell you, um, yeah, 5G. I don't know what the whole big deal is. It's all marketing hype. I mean, there's nothing like necessarily new about the actual like underlying use of the RF allocations. As you can see on the spectrum chart, I mean, for years, I mean, like this chart's been pretty full up to 300 gigahertz, and what overall worldwide cancer rates have gone down, and someone like myself who's already had skin cancer from the sun is more likely to get killed by the sun if I don't detect that one irregular shaped mole that could metastasize to my brain and therefore give me brain cancer. But imagine this. What if I didn't have an electrical engineering degree? Imagine I didn't know anything about electronics. Imagine I had an irrational fear of technology. I feel like this is what a lot of people that are spewing these theories are actually. I think that's how they actually really feel, is just that they don't understand it. And there's with kind of like any given technology, when it comes out, there's always some irrational fear or irrational criticism of like, oh, this is gonna destroy society, or it's all gonna kill us all. But no, I mean, I think I think a lot of things turned out great. I mean, one of the reasons why I went into electrical engineering, besides other fields, is for one, it's not as controversial as a lot of other fields that are semi interesting to me. Like, you know, I didn't want to go into climate science, or I didn't want to go into biology, or I didn't want to go into like I don't know, like chemistry and other kinds of fields that are a little um, that have a lot of like actual like people that are not in those fields will argue against them, and that's a hill that they're willing to die on. And so I don't know. In my opinion, electrical engineering doesn't have many of those things. It's pretty, I'd say, straight, cut forward. I mean, yeah, straightforward kind of field. I mean, come on, the our entire field is dictated by a set of equations called Maxwell's equations. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. I mean, hell, like everything else is just kind of like observations or um, I don't know, just some interesting empirical science and all this other stuff that sometimes can be all statistically driven or proven. But at least in electrical engineering, it's pretty. I'd argue it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a non-controversial field. That's why I enjoy it a lot. Even though we have our opinions on CAD tools and stuff, it's a far cry from how people feel about like chemicals and water and stuff. Oh yeah, doing the whole Alex Jones thing. No, so actually, yeah. So again, I don't know if anyone's. I mean, I assume one way or another, a common person or layperson has seen a form of this chart. And what you have to understand is, yes, there are forms of RF when they become ionizing. Like when they're actually like high power. So like we were talking about like X-rays, gamma rays, things that are very very short wavelength, like the getting towards the width of an atom or a particle. Um, and yeah, obviously those things are very harmful because I mean, they will literally change the chemistry in your body. They will They will knock the electrons or atoms off your body. I mean, like, you're just imagine, like, you're in a particle accelerator when you're next to like radioactive material, and I mean it's not good for you. I mean, uh, I think a very good illustration of that is a Veritasium video of Derek Muller or Mueller talking about how a smoker's lung is actually more radioactive than any place on Earth at any given time, which is kind of interesting. And it's because there's radioactive phosphate that they use in the fertilizers for that. And that was kind of an eye opener to my dad, at least, because my late aunt died of lung cancer. I never had actually smoked, but her husband was a smoker, and it kind of makes sense because it's not necessarily it was ever the tar that caused the cancer, but it's the tar that holds those radioactive phosphates in place, and of course a point energy source next to your living cells. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, at that point, like, the odds are highly against your favor. I mean, yeah, there are people that live long as smokers, but again, the dice roll, so to speak, is never really going to be in your favor on that one for the vast majority of people. And so going back to that, yeah. So again, I read studies that, because once again, I'm not a biologist or anything or a medical doctor, but to me, it's quite sobering that I am more likely to get brain cancer. Like actually, like it's a not like a absolutely a non-zero value. It's probably in the tens% for all I know. That if I don't detect one benign melanoma cell or a mole, basically, uh, yeah, that has a 60% chance of metastasizing to my brain. Now, with that said, a lot of forms of cancer can do that. It's not just skin cancer, but that's just what I've personally experienced. But yeah, it's kind of weird to think that, in a way. It's a very sobering thing to think that, okay, if you don't, I mean, even in a regular checkup, I mean, there's not exactly I don't know. You're not typically looking for cancer unless there's a lot of symptoms and other stuff, and by the time that happens, it's way too late. But to me, the fact that if you have a form of cancer that just goes undetected for so long, that is more likely to cause brain cancer than a cell phone. Yeah, I mean that's just the. I'd say that's just the facts. But anyways, going uh, back to this chart. I mean, like, look, the spectrum, it's been allocated for quite some time. Like, and of course, it's back and forth between like auctioning off parts of the spectrum for different use and different allocations. But let's be clear, we've been exposed to microwave radiation, mind you, non-ionizing radiation, for years now without any ill effect. I mean, hell, I look at any ham radio operator, and I mean, look, obviously you don't want 1.5 kilowatt next to your head, but I mean, there's FCC exposure limits, and it's not that it'll cause cancer. It's just that you'll legitimately get a burn because any amount of power on your skin or whatever, or your eyes actually are more susceptible to RF because of moisture and it's exposed. Um, that's you're more likely to just get burns from that, and of course it's never fun. Yeah. Um, yeah, there's even a ham radio operator that is now a silent key that told me a story of when he was in the Air Force that they would heat up coffee by putting a wooden ladder in front of a F-15's radome, so the enclosure that holds the radar system in there from the elements, but allows RF to go through. Um, they would put a pot of coffee that was cold, basically, right? Yeah, and if they wanted to heat it up, they would just turn on the radar for about, what was it, like 5 or 10 seconds, and it was boiling hot. So, and what I mean, I think that's like pulsed in the hundreds to kilowatts kind of range. So, I mean, yeah, you don't want that next to your head. You don't want that. But look, cell phones, they're not even close to that power. That's obviously a power limitation because you need the engineers have to design these things to be low power to last at least a day. Unless you're like my dad who likes to make his phone last for like a week, but that's beyond the point. Um, yeah, so it's just interesting that for so long I think ever since I'm trying to think now. I think it was like the mid 2000s as a kid that I always heard about this argument about cell phones causing cancer. Like, I'm gonna get, yeah, And to be honest, I mean, again, it's, I guess, I mean, it wasn't a new technology at the time, but I guess it was more widespread or beginning to become more widespread by that point, at least because it became quite affordable, and then now we all have smartphones now, or I mean, some people still flip phones. Uh, but no, I mean, like, look, I mean, I've at least seen many versions of this allocation chart. They all go up to like 300 gigahertz, and then of course, beyond that, there's like terahertz stuff, and then you get into visible wavelength. So you actually things color, spectrum of light basically, and then infrared and all that stuff. You ultraviolet, and then of course beyond ultraviolet is where you start to get into the more harmful stuff that you definitely don't want. And fortunately, obviously, we don't use those as forms of communications, and for very good reason. I mean, one, it's completely impractical because the atmosphere absorbs most of it, and that's why, of course, that's important because otherwise the sun would just cook us all if that weren't the case. So again, there's reasons why we use radio frequency at certain wavelengths and frequencies, because one, they're practical to make based on size, weight, and power, which is swap. Of course, it's just jargon that's stuck in my head because of the industry I work in. But yeah, I mean, DC to daylight, as they say. And yeah, so the key fact is the lower the frequency, the larger the antenna. Or like physically, any system at those frequencies is larger inherently. That's just the trade-off, the cost that you pay. And then the higher you go in frequency, the smaller the antennas are, also the more bandwidth, fundamental rules like that. And yeah, so frequencies that we take for granted are mostly, well, as a ham, HF bands, VHF, UHF, L band, and then S band, C band. And then beyond that, then you get into more niche stuff, into like X, K, KU, K, KA, and then you get up all the way up into W, V, and all the other alphabets soup. That's used for automotive radar or some like very short range systems, and maybe even SATCOM. Or that's where you get into more things become receivers at that toward the end, because there's radio astronomy. Lots of the spectrum there is used just for receiving, and they usually like to keep that part quiet. But yeah, here, I mean, as you can see, it's all allocated. And yeah, as I said, like, you notice that pretty much everything up here is all radio astronomy up to a point. And yeah, I mean, that's where this is actual proper millimeter wave, which, by the way, another thing that really started to tick me off is people making the complete lie of that, 5G is the same wavelength as a human cell. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not at all. That's just absolute BS. I don't get it, why people do that. I mean, to be honest, I think it's because they just want to sell their snake oil. Yeah, and of course, it's funny because I've been tracking this for years now, and one thing I've noticed now, I'm actually kind of glad about this, and I'm probably going to take advantage of it myself. But A lot of these meters now actually have, well, for one, they're Prime, so nice shipping, but they actually offer free returns finally. Which about a year ago when I last looked into this topic, because there's always crazy people using these meters in front of cell towers and claiming that it's causing them cancer or like ill effects. Yeah, BS. Um, yeah, like this one got me real excited because I'm like, oh, this one even has a spectrum analyzer and it's only $150. Oh my god, it's a bargain, and it detects up to 10 gigahertz. Oh, it makes me sick to my stomach. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna buy one of these. Can't wait to see what audio components are in here. And maybe a 555 timer. Or did they use one, or do we know? Yeah, I'm looking at you, hack of the audience. Anyway, yeah, so you see a bunch of this, and it's funny because like there's brands you see for normal test equipment. Of course, look, at the end of the day, it's a business, I guess. But I don't want to get into it because it's a little morally questionable in the gray area. Taking advantage of people's fear for profit. Yeah, not all for that at all. Not at all. Horrible. Yeah, so a lot of these devices, you see them up at like the good ones are above $100. Um, Trying to think of it. I think one of them is called the. Let's see. I need to look at this. Oh yeah, the tri-field meter, which I've seen this thing for years now. Uh, Waiting for Amazon to load it. Wait a second. Okay then. Maybe not. Or oh no, tri-field. Okay, so that's tri-field, but oh yeah, and another thing. I love that a lot of these are similar to I wouldn't doubt it, but I think a lot of these are just rebadged ghost meters that ghost hunters use. Like the infamous K2 and K3 meters, I guess, are like pretty popular in this community. Uh and yeah, I mean you even see name brands like X Tech, but then okay, let's be honest here. So once you click on one of these, like from a reputable test equipment company, they will clearly show specs, because the other ones they don't. I don't even think they give you like a full out data sheet and like you know like a proper calibration certificate and stuff, where all the things you expect of most test equipment. But yeah, so the obviously the one problem whenever I see these things is, wait a second, how? I mean, what? I mean, like I've been struggling to get just test equipment in these frequency ranges. How the hell are these things like less than $200? I mean, hell, the spectrum analyzer behind me, I was even lucky to get it at $500. And I mean, if I want to measure EMF, I have to get a calibrated. Okay, repeat after me. Calibrated RF antenna, or I'm sorry, EMF antenna that can measure these fields properly, which I have an example of here. And of course, this okay. So it's from Anritsu. This was just one of the first things I found from a reputable test equipment company, and of course, request for quote, meaning that if you have to ask, it's probably too expensive for you as an individual, as a lot of us like to say. But no, proper EMF meters, the ones that are actually used in EMC EMI compliance testing or trying to find leaks in your devices that are interfering with other things or other systems. I mean, these aren't any joke. Like, these are no slouch. For one, every one of these devices will have a removable antenna. Let's be clear, that's something that I've noticed that those other ones do not have. And the price tag reflects this as far as what kind of instrument it is. I mean, $1,700, good. And let's be clear, look at this frequency range. It's only a hertz to 1 megahertz. And it's at this price tag. Hmm. Interesting, huh? So how is this, which is the real working instrument, right? So much more expensive, but has a lower frequency range. And somehow this is better according to all said reviews, which of course, I mean, yeah, there is a problem on Amazon with fake reviews, but I mean, I like to think it's mostly within these kinds of products. I mean, I definitely think it's within these kinds of products, but fortunately, you'll find negative reviews of actual engineers reviewing them, and I want to be one of the ones to actually do a video review and actually a teardown of one, just to expose how just how blatantly false these claims are. I mean, hell, I mean, I have the equipment behind me. I mean, let's be clear. If you are someone that believes that 5G is causing cancer and you have one of these meters, grow up. Learn electromagnetics. Learn Calc 3. Learn all the math that we all as engineers have to struggle through. And then buy a proper lab, okay? Just gonna say it. I mean, that might piss off some people, but I mean, maybe in my circles for maybe just being a little too harsh, but I don't know. I don't get why these things exist. They shouldn't exist to begin with. It's just all a scam. Yeah, cause I mean, this specific like German company makes all these really nice EMC compliance tools, and like some of these actually properly measure EMF, and you know they're not anywhere near those Amazon prices that you sell for the fake meters. And yeah, I mean, like, look, if you actually want to measure 5G, so what people need to understand right now is that the current rollout of 5G is mostly on, you know, like just either the existing bands in UHF or an L band. So I mean, right now it's pretty much the status quo. So I don't know why people are all up in arms. But then the actual 5G that everyone's been talking about, all the rage these days, which is the millimeter wave, is put down here. And you know, again, test equipment at those frequencies, exorbitantly expensive. Hell, I don't think I can even measure that because the spectrum analyzer behind me only measures up to 22 gigahertz. So what you're telling me is, okay, I need to be on the lookout for this. I have to probably do a follow-up video in the near future. Um, so what you're telling me is that actually, because I have seen, again, I saw some of these meters a year ago that didn't have the 5G features advertised. Wow, did they add like a firmware update or was it a hardware update? Does it matter? It's all audio components anyways, right? Um, I mean, this is just unreal. 10 gigahertz, like that's not just a number. It means a lot. I mean, my general rule or like observation is anything typically above 6 gigahertz is like, whew, you add an extra zero or two on the end of that number for the price. Oh, yeah, it's a real wallet drainer, or at least you have to be a company to really afford that kind of equipment. Yeah, so even if these worked, they don't work on the frequencies that people are actually, oh, or at least what I think that they're worried about, which is the actual millimeter wave stuff at those like upwards of 20 to 30 gigahertz. Yeah, all this does is just measure what like for like the existing frequencies are like on 4G and stuff. So what's the point? Oh, that's right, there is none. You're just wasting your money if you buy one of these things. And I once again, I'm so glad that they at least offered free returns finally on these things. Cause gosh, it just it's all a scam. It really does make my blood boil time to time. Oh, this is it. This is the Acousticom. This thing, my God, this is probably one of the ones that I think is the reason why I'm so addicted now to tracking these devices. Because it's like, what? It's like, look, that's just it's just like a normal liquid crystal display. Not even like like a proper matrix. It's just like your 16 like 2 by 16 like digit display. And this supposedly measures up to 8 gigahertz. Huh? How does that even make sense? It's just weird. And again, these things don't even have external antennas. So again, in my rule book, like any good piece of test gear needs to have a removable antenna, or at least one that is, um, like, I mean, you at least should have like an SMA connector, or with a connector for the appropriate frequencies that it measures, and add the properly calibrated antenna. Then you program in all the constants or whatever that you need to measure the field properly. But no, I mean, measuring EMF in like for real is a big deal, because it's a legitimate thing with with determining whether or not your product can pass FCC compliance testing. I mean, it's used as a debug tool to figure out where sources are coming. I mean, like, the sources of unintentional RF are coming from on your boards or equipment. So, and again, like, remember this price point, and that's just for up to a megahertz. It's not even a gigahertz. We're still like, a few orders of magnitude off, and like, this price is only gonna go up once you go add, another decade or two of frequency range here. It just, it's all simple Google searching, guys. Talking to you, conspiracy theorists here. Uh, it's just it really, it's sad. That's what it is. It's uh yeah, I look at this and I'm like, I don't want to own any piece of test. I don't even want to do anything with this to properly measure anything. I need a plot. Okay, that's yeah. This is just really pissing me off. But yeah, it's an issue that, I mean, fortunately, it's not like super controversial. Like, my heart kind of goes out to those scientists that have to deal with uh non-experts claiming to be experts in their field, like, actually, or they are heavily politicized for, I mean, yeah, for political gain. Yeah, it's a horrible situation to be in. I'm just kind of glad that at least what I work in is mostly insulated from that, if at all. I mean, just, yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, these are all simple Google searches as to, like, oh, this is the frequencies. I mean, you look at the allocation chart. I mean, it's been like that for years, guys. This isn't brand new. So, and again, if this was really causing cancer, I think we'd all be dead. Like, look, legitimate sources of where you can get cancer as a normal person, like just the radon in your basement. You don't want to stay in the basement for too long. If you're a smoker, oh man, the odds are, again, stacked against you. Being outdoors for too long, like in my case, that's why I had melanoma. And yeah, 60%, folks, 60% more likely to get literal brain cancer from the sun. Mind you, there are different forms of brain cancer also, so it's not just like a brain tumor, yeah, there's different classes of that. And yeah, I mean, even I talked with a guy from our radio club, really great guy. I think might have been a former executive at a local contractor here. Um, he knows one of the forefront like leading experts of 5G that is a professor at NYU, or at least is a researcher at NYU. Um, and I guess he had a rare form of brain cancer, but again, you kind of have to look at the guy's life and look at that. Okay, he was a frequent flyer, so again, the higher you go up in the atmosphere, or just like into, yeah, the closer you are to basically the sun, right? Yeah, the atmosphere. The less atmosphere there is to insulate you from the harsh radiation from space. And being in a plane is no exception to that. I mean, again, planes have to be designed with single event upsets in mind, so that's why systems have to be redundant. Um, you know, uh, you can't just put one of anything. It has to be like two or three, and then in some cases, like in a FPGA, you'll have multiple of them, and then even within the FPGA, you have logic that's programmed in specific geometries, and then they'll vote on certain functions. And of course, that's all statistically proven, like the likelihood of things failing and not being consistent when it comes to like voting in a circuit. Yeah, that's a different talk entirely. That I'm not even an expert in, but I just kind of heard about stuff like that. Yeah, but it's very crucial to flight critical systems that keep planes in the air. So, yep, that exists, and so yeah, again, the guy had this expert had a rare form of brain cancer. Thank goodness he caught it early, or at least his doctors did, and he got it treated, and I mean that's why he's alive today. But you just kind of have to ask yourself, um, like yeah, I mean, it's not because of cell phones. There's already known existing ionizing radiation sources, and I mean, they're literally in the background all the time. Sometimes we just forget about them, and then of course we just, oh, there's a new technology, and of course it affected my life for someone close to me directly, and I think it's the cell phones. People like to blame things like that, I guess, irrationally. Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're not engineers. They haven't taken the math courses. They haven't taken electromagnetics. They don't understand any of it. So, is it actually worth debating these people? No. Um, I'm kind of guilty of belittling them and criticizing them, and yeah, not exactly something I'm proud of, but I don't know. It's just interesting when you take a step back and you're like, oh, if I weren't an engineer, I guess I could believe that if because I don't have knowledge of this or that. And again, I'd say that engineering ruined a lot of things for me that I used to believe, like a lot of popular science stuff, like, or even the magazine itself. I completely unsubscribe to it because I mean, sometimes it's just all hype and there's really no science backing it. Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: an engineering education definitely calibrates and sets your BS meter in a very nice adaptive way. And as long as you're a lifelong learner with engineering, because again, the technology changes really quick, you're able to kind of keep up, and then um, yeah, you can use that for good, in my opinion. Save people's money. Yeah, basically. Yeah. So again, I plan on buying one of these. The Acoustimeter I think is the most notorious because it's the one that I think has been around the longest. At least it's the one that I've always watched. And of course, they don't even include. I mean, it looks like. Actually, I should probably search it now. I finally figured out the name. Oh, whoops. Yeah, so I don't think these have the return policy. Oh, whoops. Yeah, so I don't even think Amazon really technically carries them, from their warehouse. So yeah, there's nothing about free returns. So I think those are kind of the exceptions. So again, um, yeah, I'd be willing to take a hit for the community in buying one of these, like at least a small fine. I mean, yeah, it would be basically wasting my money buying one of these if it doesn't have a proper return policy. But if it means that uh, I can finally, expose these people and what the snake oil that they're selling, and actually save people their money and time, and hopefully their minds even, right? I think that's a worthy cause to invest in. So, um, wow, if you wanted to ask my conspiracy opinion of all of this, I believe that this is all just some disinformation campaign from the Chinese and the Russians, the Ruskies. They've gone back to their old Soviet ways of misinformation. Actually, they never stopped anyway. Um, and they're just trying to fool the and scare the American public and from using 5G because they want to take off our technological superiority, our edge, or at least our technological edge off. And of course, it's another just thing for us to distrust, and therefore, um, if they succeed, they would be very successful in the collapse of our society because we rely largely on technology, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah, so at least that's my conspiracy tinfoil hat opinion of all of this, is that it's probably just some thing from the Kremlin or from the PRC to just discredit our technology and um, just uh, just force us into being cavemen. I don't know. I think it's just dumb. It's just not. I mean, actually, when you think about it, it's actually a very smart and cheap strategy, and I mean, you see it kind of being used quite a bit throughout the Cold War and up until now. Misinformation and stuff, and it's yeah, that's something I won't go into. Yeah, sometimes you just can't. Sometimes, yeah, it's okay. I shouldn't talk about that. Anyway, yeah. So again, in conclusion, any of these EMF meters you see on Amazon, I think absolutely. I mean, I know they're probably absolutely, probably they're absolutely BS. No way. You're telling me this thing can outperform that thing behind me? Yeah, I'm pissed. Okay. It took a lot of money to make this lab, okay? And I don't want just some tinfoil guy just with their one of these $300 meters saying that it's better than they can actually measure it. That's not true at all. Oh gosh, it's that this is an issue that I've kept track of for a very long time, and it's been very interesting to see it evolve into, and also go over to 5G because yeah, it's a problem. It's very interesting to see. Um, Again, another case of people taking advantage of other people. Again, I got recently addicted to channels on YouTube like CoffeeZilla for exposing fake gurus and other things and fake courses. Hey, my name is Jeremy Hong, and I want to sell a course on how to sell you a course to sell you more courses to other people. I mean, whatever. I don't think that's exactly a pyramid scheme, but it's a scam. Yeah. Here in my garage, here is my Ferrari that I used all with just knowledge from these books that I read. Pay this much amount of money and I'll give you the tools and advice that you totally can't find on the internet anyway for free to make enough money to buy this. No, this is Jeremy Hung from Hung's Electronics, and if you're a hobbyist, it's not a bad field to go into. It worked out for me. I'm pretty serious about it. I mean, I do this as my job. I mean, basically it's my life now, so pretty dedicated to it. So, on that note, good night. Stay safe, everybody, and peace out.